They set him up to fail, but Clint Eastwood's response left the host and his panel completely speechless. The studio hums with quiet tension. Cameras roll. The city skyline glows through the glass windows behind the set. But inside, all eyes are on the stage. At the center sits Grayson Holt, a name that commands attention in liberal media circles. He's built his career on razor-sharp monologues, viral takedowns, and a smug confidence that makes his audience cheer while his opponents squirm. Tonight, he's looking for another victim. Across from him sits Clint Eastwood, Hollywood legend, straight shooter, and completely out of place in this room. Or at least that's what everyone assumes. The panelists flanking Grayson exchange knowing smirks, waiting for the spectacle to begin. Grayson leans back in his chair, one leg crossed over the other, fingers tapping against the desk like a drummer counting in the first beat of a performance. "All right, Clint," he begins, dragging out his name like a school teacher indulging a kid who just gave a wrong answer. "Let's cut through the fluff. You're old, conservative, and somehow still convinced that your way of thinking isn't outdated. So tell me, are you here to defend the past, or are you just auditioning for a comeback in right-wing media?" A low chuckle ripples across the panel. Someone shifts in their seat, amused. This is familiar. Grayson's setting up another routine takedown. Clint doesn't blink. He sits still, hands resting on the table, waiting. He doesn't rush to respond. He doesn't fidget. Grayson takes that as an opening to push further. "I mean, let's be real," he continues, adjusting his blazer as if settling in. "Conservatives love parading guys like you around. Tough, old school, still clinging to an America that doesn't exist anymore. But at the end of the day, it's the same tired script. Law and order, personal responsibility, something about real men in the good old days." He smirks, the camera zooming in. The panelists watch with thinly veiled amusement. Clint tilts his head, face unreadable. He's letting Grayson talk, letting him dig his own hole. Finally, Clint speaks, low, steady, and unimpressed. "Was that a serious question?" Grayson shrugs, spreading his hands. "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I hit a nerve?" Another chuckle from the panel. The setup is complete. Grayson is comfortable, thinking everything is going according to plan. But something shifts in Clint's expression, a flicker of something dangerous. Not anger, not nervousness, certainty. He leans forward, eyes locking onto Grayson's. He's about to turn this into the host's worst on-air moment yet. And Grayson Holt has no idea. Grayson leans forward, smirking. "I have to admire your confidence, Clint. It takes real dedication to be part of a movement that, let's be honest, belongs in a museum. You're clinging to a world that doesn't exist anymore. A world where men like you made the rules and everyone else just fell in line." The panel erupts in laughter. Even the camera crew chuckles. It's a clean hit. At least, that's what Grayson thinks. Clint doesn't move. Not a twitch. Grayson notices, but he's convinced the old man is just keeping up a front. He pushes on. "And I have to ask," he continues, feigning curiosity, "do you actually believe what you say? Or is this just a long-term grift? You know, say the right things, keep the old-school crowd happy, maybe land another dusty role playing a cowboy in some nostalgia-fueled fantasy." One of the panelists, a journalist from a progressive outlet, grins and jumps in. "Let's not forget the conservative playbook," she adds, shaking her head. "Find someone legendary, marketable, and willing to repackage the same tired ideas with a little Hollywood charisma. Honestly, Clint, do you ever feel like they're just using you?" Another round of laughter. Grayson sees his moment. He's going for the knockout. "I mean, look at your position, Clint," he says, gesturing lazily. "You're defending a movement that fights against change, while parading you around as proof they're still relevant. Do you see the irony? Or are you just contractually obligated to ignore it?" A panelist next to him chimes in, laughing. "Come on, Grayson. Don't be mean. Maybe he actually believes all this." Grayson grins. The audience, the cameras, the viewers at home, everyone is waiting for the stumble. But Clint doesn't blink. Instead, he shifts slightly in his chair, straightens his posture, and lets the laughter die out on its own. 2 full seconds of silence. The energy in the room shifts. The moment is his now. Then he exhales, tilts his head slightly, and speaks. "You done?" Grayson blinks. It's subtle, but the power just shifted. No one realizes it yet. The laughter dies faster than Grayson expected. He was sure he had this in the bag. The audience had been on his side. The panel had backed him up. So why does it suddenly feel like he's lost control? Clint leans forward, keeping his hands on the table, his expression unreadable. He's not flustered, not angry, just certain. "I asked you a question, kid." Grayson forces a chuckle, shaking his head. "Oh, Clint, don't get all dramatic. It's just—" "No, really?" Clint cuts in. His voice is so calm, it's unsettling. "Are you finished? Because I want to make sure you get all your little rehearsed jabs out before I respond." The room tightens. Grayson's smirk falters, just for a fraction of a second. The panelists shift in their seats. The camera crew, suddenly aware that something real is unfolding, instinctively adjust their angles. They weren't expecting this. Clint tilts his head, not smiling, not frowning, just watching. Then he speaks. "See, kid, this is what you do. You set people up with smug little sound bites, get your panel to laugh, and expect your guests to stumble, get defensive, shrink. Usually it works." He pauses, just long enough for the weight of it to settle. "But here's the problem. You didn't do your homework." Grayson lets out a dry laugh. "Oh, believe me, Clint, No, you didn't." Clint cuts in again, his voice steady, controlled, unshaken. "Because if you had, you'd know I don't fold. And I further as hell don't let punks like you define me." The room is dead silent. Grayson sits up a little straighter. For the first time, he's not in control. Clint shifts his weight, his voice drops just enough to cut through the tension. "You call me a relic, a puppet. You act like I don't have a mind of my own, like I'm just here to play a part." He lets the words hang for a second. Then he leans back and smiles. But it's not friendly. Clint's voice stays calm, steady. "You say I have no agency, no original thoughts, that I'm just here to repeat talking points." He pauses, just enough to let the words settle. Then he leans in slightly. "But here's the irony, kid. You're the one sticking to a script." Grayson shifts in his seat. Clint doesn't let up. "You walked in here with the same tired attacks, the same predictable insults. Because that's all you know how to do. Mock, dismiss, belittle. That's your whole playbook." He lets the silence stretch, then his voice drops, low, measured, sharp as a knife. "And yet I'm the one who's supposed to lack originality." A sharp pause. Grayson has no immediate response. Clint doesn't give him room to breathe. "You sit there acting like you care about freedom, about people having a voice. But the second someone speaks in a way that doesn't fit your narrative, you mock them." Grayson's jaw tightens. "You pretend to care about the younger generation being engaged in politics, but if they're not reading straight from your script, you discredit them." A slow shake of the head. "You talk about progress, but the second someone challenges you, you fall back into the same condescending routine." He finally leans back, and for the first time, he smiles, but it's not friendly. "You don't want a conversation, kid. You want a punching bag." A beat of silence. "And I ain't here to be one." Grayson blinks. The panelists glance at each other. Someone clears their throat, shifting uncomfortably in their seat. The confidence in the room is gone. The camera zooms in slightly, capturing something rare on live TV, actual silence. In under 2 minutes, Clint Eastwood just flipped the entire dynamic. And for the first time in his career, Grayson Holt has nothing to say. For a second, no one speaks. The silence isn't just awkward, it's heavy. Grayson's jaw tightens. His fingers twitch slightly on the desk. Then he forces a chuckle, shaking his head like he's still in control. "Wow, Clint, that was quite the little speech. Did you practice that in the mirror this morning?" A weak attempt at regaining dominance. It falls flat. The panelists aren't laughing this time. One of them clears their throat, glancing at the camera crew, silently asking, "Are we still live?" Clint doesn't flinch. He just watches him, his confidence unshaken. And then, the show cuts to commercial. Not because it was planned, not because they wrapped up naturally, but because someone in the control room panicked. The moment the broadcast goes dark, Twitter explodes. Clips from the exchange spread like wildfire. Holy hell, Clint Eastwood just destroyed Grayson Holt on live TV. They literally had to cut to commercial. This was a massacre. I've never seen Holt this speechless before. Ever. The video racks up millions of views in hours. Even people who don't follow politics are hooked. Liberal commentators scramble to spin the narrative. Some downplay the moment, saying Grayson was just letting him talk. Others claim Clint was just being dramatic or playing the victim. But it doesn't work. The clip speaks for itself. And then, things get worse for Grayson. The network's inbox is flooded. People demand a response. The ratings from the segment come in, and while they're through the roof, the engagement is brutal. Grayson's usual supporters aren't rallying behind him. Instead, some are quietly questioning, did he actually get outplayed? Why didn't he fire back? Why did they cut to commercial so fast? The panelists who had laughed earlier start distancing themselves. One of them, a journalist from a progressive news outlet, tweets, "To be clear, I don't think Grayson was ready for that moment. It was uncomfortable, and cutting to commercial only made it worse." Which is the professional way of saying he choked. Grayson knows it too, and now he has to make a choice, double down or do damage control. But either way, the damage is already done. Grayson Holt is no stranger to controversy, but this feels different. By the time the show wraps, his phone is already blowing up. Texts from producers, network executives, his PR team, everyone is panicking. Grayson scrolls through Twitter. Every third post is a clip of his face, frozen in silence, while Clint Eastwood dismantles him. Memes are everywhere. GraysonHolt.exe has stopped working. When your whole personality is being smug, but it backfires. The exact moment he realized Clint wasn't playing defense. The clip hits every major news site before Grayson even leaves the studio. The headline? Grayson Holt gets humiliated on live television. He slams his phone down. This isn't just bad, this is career-threatening. His producer calls. We need a statement. Damage control is standard in media, but this time they're scrambling. The plan? Frame it as Grayson being gracious, giving Clint a platform to share his perspective. Minutes later, his PR team puts out a desperate tweet from his account. Great conversation tonight with Clint Eastwood. We don't always agree, but these discussions are important for democracy. Looking forward to more debates like this. No one buys it. The replies are brutal. Dude, you got cooked. Just take the L. Why are you pretending you let this happen? You got wrecked. This is the PR equivalent of pretending you meant to trip on stage. The network isn't happy, not just because of the viral moment, but because of how bad he looked. One executive calls an emergency meeting. They start talking about restructuring the panel format to avoid another disaster like this. Then a leaked email circulates online. It's from an unnamed producer at the network. We should have cut to commercial sooner. This was a disaster. The leak only makes things worse. Now people know the commercial break wasn't routine. It was a panic move. Grayson Holt was losing so badly they had to pull the plug. And now everyone is talking about it. Meanwhile, Clint Eastwood is doing nothing. No frantic tweets, no press statements, no victory lap, just a single post on his account. Let people say what they want. The truth always speaks for itself. The simplicity of it makes it hit even harder. And by the next morning, it's Grayson Holt's reputation that's hanging in the balance. But the true impact? That's about to hit even harder, the fallout. By morning, Grayson Holt is everywhere, but not in the way he's used to. Cable news shows are analyzing the moment. Political commentators, left and right, are picking apart why he failed. Some liberal hosts try to downplay it. It wasn't that bad, he just let Clint talk too long. But others aren't so kind. This is what happens when you get too comfortable attacking people instead of debating them. Then comes the real hit. Late-night comedians. One show plays the clip, pausing right on Grayson's stunned silence. Folks, this is the look of a man realizing his entire personality is collapsing in real time. The audience roars with laughter. Even his own fans can't spin this one. Some try, But the replies bury them under a pile of memes and undeniable facts. Because Clint didn't just win the argument, he became the story. Conservative media calls it one of the greatest takedowns in TV history. Clips of his response flood social media. But something bigger is happening. The narrative around Clint Eastwood is shifting. He's no longer just an old Hollywood legend. He's the man who walked into a hostile room and walked out untouchable. He's no longer just an aging Hollywood icon. He's the man who walked into a hostile room and walked out untouchable. And that's when the calls start coming in. More interviews, bigger platforms, speaking offers, a book deal rumored to be in the works. People who dismissed him before, now they're paying attention. And Grayson Holt, for the first time in his career, he's not setting the conversation. He is the conversation. His show's ratings spike, but not in a good way. People are tuning in, waiting for him to mess up again. The network is getting nervous. Executives schedule a reputation strategy meeting. A senior producer, one of his biggest supporters, steps down. And it's not an official punishment, but everyone sees the writing on the wall. Grayson Holt is damaged goods. And Clint, he just cemented himself as a legend. Again, the moment that didn't fade. Some moments burn out in hours. This one didn't. Days passed, but the clip kept circulating. Because this wasn't just about a debate. It was about something deeper. People on both sides of the political spectrum took notice. Some saw it as a warning. Never underestimate your opponent. Others saw it as proof authenticity beats performance. But one thing was undeniable. This wasn't just a viral moment. It was a shift. The illusion shattered. Grayson Holt built his career on mockery, control, scripted takedowns. He never debated in good faith. He humiliated. And that worked. Until it didn't. Because his loss wasn't just about a single conversation. It was about the illusion breaking. People watched it happen in real time. They saw someone who always had the upper hand lose it completely. And once that happens, the spell is broken. Why Clint won? Clint Eastwood didn't win because he yelled louder. He didn't win because he out-insulted Holt. He won because he never flinched. He didn't get defensive. He didn't let the room decide how he should react. He stayed calm. And most importantly, he called out the game Grayson was playing. And in doing so, he made Holt the one on defense. That's what made it powerful. The fallout for Grayson Holt's career isn't over, but it's changed. The confidence he once carried, it won't hit the same. His audience saw him struggle. His critics saw him exposed. And Clint, this wasn't just a viral moment. It was a career-defining one. A moment that made people pay attention. A moment that turned mockery into a movement. The real lesson. Here's the truth. We all face moments like this. Maybe not on live TV, maybe not with millions watching. But in our own way, we all get tested. We all get put in situations where someone tries to belittle us. We all face people who expect us to fold. And in those moments, the way you handle yourself changes everything. Do you let them define you, or do you take control of the moment? That's the real lesson. And now it's your turn. Was this a strategic takedown by Clint? Or was it just pure confidence in action? And what does this say about modern media? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe, because trust me, there's more to uncover.